Welcome back to another episode of the Real, Relevant, and Righteous podcast. I'm Alexandria, and as discussed in the intro video, I'll be doing a series on the I am statements in the gospel. And the first one that we'll be doing is the bread of life. So this one will be about I am the bread of life. So you can find that in John 6 verses 22 to 59, but the actual verse where Jesus said that is verse 35, and it says, Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me shall not hunger, and whoever believes in me shall never thirst. So before I even get into the scripture and break it down, let's discuss what is bread. Now, I think it's something that everybody should know what bread is, but I would also like to break it down contextually, and even in that time what bread is. So in today's world where we know bread, it is different than the bread mentioned in the Bible, or it's different if you ask people in today's society and in the society back then. It's two different things, right? In today's world, bread does not get a good rep, right? If you're trying to lose weight, or if you're trying to just have a healthier eating journey, people will tell you, oh, stop eating bread, it's too much carbs, it's this, it's that, right? So it's something, so people will tell you to let go of bread, let go of carbs, as it's something that weighs you down and something that holds you back, right? So bread as we know it today, it's filled with preservatives, unlike the bread in the Bible. So in the Bible, bread would be eaten with every meal, no matter the status of the family, right? So it will be made fresh daily, and you can have it with different meals. So off the bat, that reminds me of Jesus's teaching to the disciples on how to pray when he said, give us this day our daily bread. So that means when he said that, they would understand that language that he used, right? Because as I said, families would make bread daily. Okay, so what does bread do for us as humans? Let's address this other question. So first I said what is bread, and now the second question is, what does bread do for us as humans? So bread provides nourishment, sustenance, and it represents the provision of God. So in the Old Testament, God provided manna for the Israelites in the wilderness. We know the story. You can go to Exodus 16 if you want to read more, but I want to focus on Exodus 16 verses 4, right? And that says, then the Lord said to Moses, behold, I am about to rain bread from heaven for you, and the people shall go out and gather a day's portion every day, that I may test them, whether they will walk in my law or not. Just a reminder of the story. It would spoil if they collected extra, right? But only on the 6th day, they were allowed to collect extra, because the 7th was the Sabbath, right? So now Jesus is saying to us that he is the one who will sustain us and nourish us in our spiritual walk. Manna was a temporary sustainer, while Jesus, as the bread of life, will be a more permanent sustenance. There was an expiration date on the manna, while Jesus is eternal. Let me say that again. There was an expiration date on the manna, while Jesus, the bread of life, is eternal. So eternity is outside of time. That's why the verse said, whoever comes to me shall never hunger or thirst. Being hungry and thirsty are things that happen to us as humans daily, and it's normal for that. That's how we were designed, to be hungry, to be thirsty, right? So if Jesus, being the bread of life, can put an end to hunger and thirst, not physically. We should be seeking the face of the Lord every single day to build up and sustain our spiritual man, right? The price of partaking of the bread of life is eternal life, right? So out of all the foods though, right? Because I love food and I like to cook. So that was another question that I had. Out of all the food, right, that provides sustenance. All food provides some sort of sustenance. Obviously, if it's like soda or like chips, it's not as good as more natural foods, but it will still bring you a little way, right? So let's just agree that all food will give you some sort of sustenance. So if out of all the foods that provide sustenance, yam, I'm Jamaican, yam, banana, plantain, dumpling, like out of all the foods, you can list your favorite. Out of all the foods, why did God choose bread to compare himself to? Why did God choose bread to compare himself to? So yes, it's well known culturally, we can agree on that, but I think the process of bread and the process of Jesus also share similarities. So sit down for this one. Sit down. So one day I was baking bread. I have a bread machine. And I was just I like to, because it has a little window, I like to watch it in the different stages that it was baking. And I was like, I got a crazy revelation. But that day I was also fasting, so I think my head was a little bit in the cloud. So I'm about to share that download with you, why bread also share a similarity with the life of Jesus. Okay, so the process of baking bread, right? The process transforms you into what you're meant to be. What does that mean? So it can be messy, it can be awful. Remember, I was using a bread machine, so I didn't use my hands, but some people use their hands to knead dough. Let me just stay with me. I'm getting somewhere, right? So there are important points necessary when baking bread, right? And remember, I said I was using the bread machine, so it also does the mixing, the proofing, all of that is on the machine, right? All right, so I'm going to talk about the parts in the process and relate it back. So there's the kneading, the proofing, and the baking. That's the three important parts I'm going to talk about. And if you don't do these parts right, the bread is not going to come out right. Okay? So the kneading of the bread is messy. It takes different ingredients to put together. You have the flour, you have the oil, you have the yeast, the liquid. You have all of that you have to do, right? So we can allude that this is the birth of Jesus. Mary and Joseph were pushed to and fro. The same, remember, this is the kneading of the bread. So Mary and Joseph were pushed to and fro the same way when kneading the ingredients together, right? You have to go through some resistance. Come on. You have to go through some resistance to come together. Remember the story of Mary and Joseph. I'm not gonna go over it because I imagine that you know it, but you have to, the ingredients don't just come together in peace. They come together because you're working them out. They come together because you are in there, because you are giving it some resistance, as I said earlier, right? So now after you've kneaded it, you need to put it aside for it to proof. So for those who don't cook or don't bake, usually proofing is where you put it down for then the yeast to get activated so it can rise, right? All right, so proofing is important because the bread starts to now rise and develop, right? You start to see what the end result could potentially look like. So whatever pan you have it in, it starts to take that shape. It starts to become bigger. It starts to become, right? So to me, the revelation that I got of the proofing and how it relates to Jesus, this is when Jesus was in the temple at the age of 12. It wasn't time to bake yet, right? Remember, his parents couldn't find him. They didn't know where he was, but they ended up finding him in the temple. So he was teaching at the time. So it wasn't time to bake yet, or for him to show his true potential, but he was starting to rise, starting to develop, starting to show people the potential that was inside him, showing the great teacher he would be. So as I said, this is where the bread is starting to look like bread. It's still raw, but it's coming up. You can say, okay, I see where it's going. I see where this is going. So that is the proofing, right? Now the baking, that's when the dough goes through changes that are physical, chemically and biologically, right? But to get to its true purpose, the dough has to go through heat. Come on, are you still here with me? The dough has to go through heat for it to be baked, for it to become its true purpose, for it to become its true self. Okay, so the dough cannot be eaten raw. If you eat raw dough, hospital, you're going to be sick. You cannot eat raw dough. Okay, so this is the time that Jesus started his ministry and went through the heat of getting to his purpose, which was dying on the cross. He faced many adversity and even asked God if the cup could pass, but then he said, not my will, but yours be done. So after the bread is done, right? Sometimes I can't even wait because it smells good. You want to get some butter right away, but you are supposed to wait to cut it because the shape can then deflate, right? So after the bread is done, we have to wait for it to cool the same way we had to wait for his resurrection. After the resurrection, it's time to eat. It's time to cut your bread and receive your nourishment and sustenance, right? You do not get the benefits of the bread without the bread being broken. I'm gonna say that again. I hope you catching it. You do not get the benefits of the bread without the bread being broken. And with that, we have access to healing. Because remember the verse that says, by his stripes we are healed. That is Isaiah 53 verse 5. It says, he was wounded for our transgressions. He was bruised for my iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. But also remember the Last Supper, right? And we say this verse a lot when we're doing communion in today's church. The verse, Luke 22 verse 9, and it says, and he took bread, gave thanks, and broke it, and gave it to them, saying, this is my body given for you. Do this in remembrance of me. That's the NIV version. That is further proven that his body was broken so that we can get sustenance, so that we can get nourishment. The same way how you have to break bread in today's day to eat of it, to get the nourishment physically, right? So we have access to eternal life through Jesus. Everybody knows John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his one and only Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have eternal life. And there are so many other benefits we can get from the bread of life, Jesus, if only we accept him and this part is important, and partake of him daily. So now, are you partaking of the bread daily? What does that look like for you? What can you do to improve that? So these are questions that I want you to ask yourself, and it's not just for you, but it's also for me, right? How can I incorporate the daily bread in my life the same way the people in the Bible did? Not just physically, but how can we do that even on a spiritual level? So, to end all of this, to end this episode, I hope it was good to you. Do not let the bread go to waste. Do not let Jesus introducing himself as the bread of life, Jesus becoming the bread of life in every stage of his life. Don't let that go to waste. But let's partake. Let's get nourished. Let's get the benefits of the bread. So this is the end of the I Am the Bread of Life episode, and I really hope that you enjoyed it. Comment below what your favorite thing was about this episode, and please share it to someone. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. So stay tuned for more of the I Am series, the I Am episodes, and until next time, let's keep it real, keep it righteous, and keep it relevant.